Hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well, let's learn English together. And welcome everyone. Come in, come in, come in. Come in and sit down. Sit down on some warm, damp milk with some eyebrow. No, that's not it either. I can't remember what the message was. The message from that French singer. You know, Johnny Halliday's mum. Oh well, never mind. There's no use in crying over spilt. Hey, that's it. By the power of Bobby Mugabe's underpants, I've remembered. Yes, that's it. That's what she was banging on about, wasn't it? She was telling us that it wasn't worth our while to cry about spilt milk. She was saying that there were plenty of worse things that could happen. Look what happened to her, for example. The beautician removed her eyebrows and gave her some Y-brows in return. All right, now I'll be able to sleep again. I've remembered what she was wailing about. All right, so that's that out of the way. Right, so what are we doing now? Oh yes, of course, I remember now. Hey, that's good. That's 2, count them, 2, not 3, not 1, and definitely not 27 things that I've remembered today. First, I remembered what Johnny Halliday's mum was on about, and now, with no prompting from anyone, I remembered what we're doing. Hooray! All right, and there's just one more thing. Do you know what lesson this is? Has anyone been keeping track of the number of lessons that we've completed, finished, and done? Well, if you had been keeping track, then you'd know that the last lesson we completed, the Thursday lesson, yesterday, that lesson was the lesson after lesson 348, which means, my friends of logic, that Thursday's lesson was lesson 349, which means, in turn, that this lesson here. All right, now I know that we're going to catch up with the Benchfields today. I know it, I can feel it in my bones. I'm certain that we're finally going to catch up with them today. But before we go searching for the moving disaster film that the Benchfields are, let's just think for a moment about the new vocabulary we saw yesterday. Do you remember the vocabulary that I'm talking about? The vocabulary which is connected to building things out of many pieces, and then the connected word, which means the reverse, to assemble and to disassemble. As you all remember, when we buy furniture nowadays, the furniture is flat packed. It comes flat in boxes, which makes it easier to stack, to store, to fit into your car or van, to carry. Because the furniture is flat packed, it means that we can get a bed into the room and construct or build the bed when we're in the room. If we build the bed outside the room and then try to get it through the door, it might be impossible. But this way, we can get the bed into the room, in the box, and then we can assemble. We can put the bed together. We can construct the bed inside the room. Okay, so that's the verb to assemble, to make something, to put something together from lots of different pieces. Now, think about factories. What do people do in factories? Well, traditionally, people who work in factories make things. But, well, things have changed a little in the world economy in the past few decades. And more companies have moved their factories to different parts of the world. Most factories are in the East, in China or Southeast Asia or India. A lot of companies move their factories to these countries or to these areas because workers get less money, which means it's cheaper for the company to make things in these countries. But in Europe still, we find a lot of large buildings where things aren't made, but things are transported here from the factories. And here in Europe, we put the things together. We assemble them. These things are manufactured or made in China or in India or somewhere, and then they're transported to Europe to be assembled, to be put together, to be constructed. So, Whereas we used to have factories in Europe, nowadays we have more assembly lines. Places where people assemble the different parts of something to make something. Now, according to what I was always told, assembly lines were first created by a Hungarian. Some bloke who worked for Henry Ford, you know, the American car manufacturer. Anyway, that may or may not be true. It's not important now. The idea of an assembly line is that the people in the factory don't move. The workers stay in one place, and the thing which we're assembling, the thing that we're constructing, the thing that we're putting together, it moves around the factory from one person to the next. It moves on a conveyor belt. We stand still, it comes to us, and then we do something to it. And it travels on the conveyor belt, just like in the supermarket. It moves along the moving belt to the next person. And so it goes on. So that at stage one, we can't tell what it's going to be, but slowly, as different pieces are put together, as it's assembled, as we assemble it piece by piece, we can see it start to take form. We can start to recognize it. And then, when it gets to the last person, when it gets to the end of the assembly line, we can see that it's a TV or a washing machine or a computer or a telephone or whatever. All right, and as I mentioned, the thing, the machine or whatever is being assembled, this thing moves around the assembly line from person to person, from machine to machine on a conveyor belt. And where else do we find conveyor belts? Well, the place we normally see them is at the supermarket, at the till, at the place where the cashier sits. When we've finished our shopping, we go to the till and start to empty our basket or trolley onto the conveyor belt. The conveyor belt conveys or moves or transports the shopping to the cashier. And that brings us back to where? Yes, that's perfectly correct. Talking about conveyor belts brings us back to the supermarket, and that's where we last saw the Benchfields, isn't it? Well then, it must be time for us to catch up with the Benchfield family's shopping saga once more. Now, who remembers what was happening the last time we saw the Benchfields? Yes, that's right. Tim and Lizzie were looking for the others. Doreen and John were filling the trolley with fruit and veg. Remember, Doreen knows her onions about fruit and veg. And Alfredo? Where was Alfredo when we last saw him? Now I remember. Alfredo had an accident in the cheese section, didn't he? Yes. Alfredo decided to get some cheese, but the trolley was with Doreen and John. This meant that Alfredo didn't have anywhere to put the cheese, so he had to hold it all in his arms, didn't he? But there was a problem, wasn't there? Yes, Alfredo tried to carry too much cheese. His arms were full of cheese. There were different types of cheeses piled up in his arms, and he still wanted more. He was looking for some pecorino, wasn't he? He asked the shop assistant to help him find the pecorino, but the shop assistant couldn't help him. The shop assistant doesn't work in the cheese section, so he didn't know where the pecorino is. The shop assistant went off to try and find someone who could help. But when he returned, when he came back, he told Alfredo that he couldn't find anyone. He did bring a basket though. Alfredo wasn't happy. He wanted pecorino, not a basket. And he asked the shop assistant why he'd brought a basket. The shop assistant told Alfredo that he brought a basket so that Alfredo could put the cheese into it. And that's when things went pear-shaped, didn't they? Yes. Alfredo, with his arms full of cheese, couldn't see where he was going. And yes, what we all thought might happen did happen, didn't it? Alfredo tripped and fell. He fell over into the cheese. With the cheese he was holding in his arms. He fell over and got covered in cheese. Poor Alfredo. The last thing we saw was that the shop assistant was using the tannoy, the public address system, the thing they use in supermarkets to tell people things. You know, if someone can't find their parents, then they go to customer services, and there someone uses the tannoy system to send a message through the supermarket. Everyone in the supermarket can hear the message. The message is broadcast through loudspeakers so that everyone can hear it. So that's where we last saw Alfredo, standing, covered in cheese, spelling like a cheese bomb in the middle of the cheese aisle. Oh, and here come the kids. Oh, God. Dad, what? Dad, how? Dad, why? Ha 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 ha! That's the funniest thing I've seen all day. Tim, don't push your luck. I'm not in a very good mood at the moment. If you say one more offensive thing, you'll regret it. I'll make sure that you regret it for a long, long, long time. So, do you have anything that you'd like to say to me? What, me? Nope. Nothing? Not a thing. Good. Keep it that way. Now, kids, I've had enough of this shopping trip. We're going home now. But Dad, what about the shopping? Leave it. I'm leaving now. I've had enough. But Dad, we've spent ages getting all this food. John and I got loads of stuff, not just fruit and veg. John and I did most of the shopping. We're almost finished. Oh, all right. I suppose it's not fair to just leave without the shopping. All right, we'll finish the shopping now. Let's go to the tills, to the checkout. We'll pay for the food, put it into the car, and go home. And when we get home, I'm going to have a shower.
Yeah, that's a very good idea, Dad. You smell awful. You stink. You reek. You pong.
Oi! Less cheek from chickens. Just remember what I told your brother. The same goes for all of you. Right, to the tills! Oh, blimey. And that's where we'll have to leave them. Because, yes, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Yes, the lessons come to an end, and it's time for us to go our separate ways. I'm going home to have a coffee and start getting ready for the weekend. And as for you, well, I've no idea. But I reckon that your ideas are probably the same as mine. It's time to relax a little bit. Then, after we've relaxed with another cup of coffee, it's time to hit the shower. Tonight, it's going to be Friday night, the best night of the week. So, we've got to do things properly. Wash? No. Scrub yourselves in the shower, then jump out of the shower and bung on some antiperspirant. The gods of English don't want to smell like a homeless dinosaur's armpit now, do they? No sir, no ma'am. So, coffee, shower, and then smelling like a rose? Well, it's time to meet up with your friends, and then, well, then it's time to head towards Good Time City. I'll see you all there. All right, it's the weekend, folks, so have as much fun as you can. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you all again on Monday. Oh, and if you get a chance, check out the website, the one with all the letters, including the 3 Ks, www.mediaclick.hu. See you later. Bye.